And for children who spend more than 4 hours of screen time in a day, they were 4 times more likely to have language deficits and communication deficits.
This increased screen time when they were 2 years or less of age.
We are literally frying our child's brain. The child can gauge if you are in a good mood or not.
Is this permanent damage? And is this a sign of bad parenting?
Well, this is a sign of bad parenting if you're not paying attention to it.
Is watching the screen while eating healthy? Do you know that your stress as a parent is actually affecting your child and hampering his growth? Many such questions will be answered on today's podcast on most common parenting mistakes. Hi, I'm Dr. Nivedita.
And hi, I'm Dr. Chandril, and we are both American board certified doctors. Welcome to the Dr. Good Deed podcast.
Is watching a screen actually killing your child's brain cells?
Well, the short answer is yes. Well, let me tell you a fact that will scare you. For every hour of screen time that the child spends, he learns 400 fewer adult words, makes 300 less childlike sounds, and has 60 less conversational returns, like forming a good conversation back and forth. That is how grave the situation is for every hour, and that's 1 hour every day.
Do you mean to say that my child is going to grow up to have a lot of difficulty forming friends, maybe very socially awkward in front of people, may get bullied more in life? And you know what happens to such children who get bullied so much? They're going to have so many mental health problems, like maybe depression.
You're absolutely right. People who cannot have good conversations have huge difficulty adapting to life and life issues. And that's been proven time and again in all the studies.
So why is the screen such a big villain in the first 2 years of life?
Well, let me tell you this. First 2 years is when the brain grows fastest. And you know what helps the brain to grow? Face-to-face interaction, eye contact, touching and playing, talking and singing. Does your screen do any of that?
Not really.
That is why the brain cells die. This is the window most of the parents miss today.
How serious and grave is this problem?
Well, let me give you some facts. Do you know how many children less than 2 years of age get zero screen time?
Not really.
Less than 25%.
Wow.
Yeah. And how many children less than 5 years of age get less than 1 hour of screen time a day? Less than 1/3. That is how serious this problem is.
So, how does the amount of time you spend on the screen affect your development?
Well, this is where it gets interesting. So there was a study published in JAMA, which is the Journal of American Medical Association, and they looked at 7,000 kids and they looked at how much time they spent on television. For people who spend about 2 hours, there was a 1.5 time delay in their language skills and communication. And for children who spend more than 4 hours of screen time in a day, they were 4 times more likely to have language deficits and communication deficits. So imagine if a child cannot express himself to his friends, to his parents, to his relatives, what kind of a life is that child looking at? This society is not very kind, unfortunately.
And this is an eye-opening fact that the more time the child is spending on the screen, the more the delay in their communication. And you will agree with me that nowadays we really do have this problem of more and more children having to go to speech therapy because their language is being delayed. But somewhere along the line, it is coming from this increased screen time when they were 2 years or less of age.
We are literally frying our child's brain.
Is language the only thing that suffers?
Well, language is the start of it, but there are other things that come with it. Imagine if the child keeps watching fast-moving cartoons, fast-changing images. So all that attention is going towards the visual cortex, or the part of the brain that looks and analyzes the images. Child gets addicted to it, and what the child is learning is that the world is moving at that pace. But real life is actually boring in front of it. So the child does not know how to be patient. Child will have more mood disorders, more tantrums. Child will cry more, become more irritable. It will also interfere with the sleep of the child because the visual cortex, the back of the brain which analyzes the images, is always stimulated and never gets rest. And that is when people cannot sleep. You could see that with adults too, who watch a lot of screen, have a lot of sleep problems. So language is just a part of it. Children who are exposed to screen time have a lot of other developmental delays, not just limited to language.
If your child is watching the screen a lot and it is interfering with their language and their performance in school, please write yes in the comment section. Nowadays, parents are usually using the screen to feed the child because, they're all very busy and they feel that if they don't show the screen, the child doesn't eat. What is wrong with that?
Well, imagine this. Every time your child sits in front of a screen and then eats, so the child is paying all the attention to the screen and not the food. And what you're doing is you're actually training the child to eat when he's watching the screen rather than when he's actually hungry or not hungry. This can actually lead to a lot of problems like overeating, which may become obesity. Or on the other hand, a child may be full, may not want to eat, but feels hungry every time he watches that cartoon or television because you've associated that with eating food. So we are actually training our child to be dependent on screen to eat food. Now imagine when this child grows up. Right? So every time the TV goes on, they want to eat something.
Exactly.
What kind of a generation are we making? We are training our children to be addicts. That is not good. The other thing that happens that we bypass where every time we keep a screen in front of a hungry child is eating is a process. It's not just putting food in your mouth. When you sit on a table, you wait for the food, you look at the food, you savor the food, and then you eat as much as you can, and then you stop before you feel full. This is a whole process.
Exactly.
And when that screen is going on, the child bypasses the entire process and keeps eating, and then you take the screen away and the food away. So you've just trained your child. So you've trained your child to be impatient because you bypassed the 4 steps. You've also trained your child who will not now be tolerant to frustration of waiting. So we have trained and we are making a generation who's more impatient and more frustrated, which is not a good generation to have. This is where it starts. And then we wonder, why is everybody so hungry now?
Yeah, one of the things I've also noticed, is that when we are using the screen to feed the child, there is a certain amount of isolation that comes with at the time of eating, because eating is usually a very social event. Just tell us a little bit about that how does that impact the child's growth?
See, imagine when the child is born, the mother takes the child in her lap and breastfeeds the baby. So there's the bonding. That is when the child feels secure. So now that the child is growing and you kept the child away from you in front of a screen, and you are probably watching your own program while the child is busy on the screen themselves, and there is no interaction going on. So the bond between a child and a parent is technically broken. The dining table is one of the most important places in the house. This is where a child bonds with the parent. Child discusses their day with their parents. Child is going to become more socially available and socially acceptable because of those interactions. And we are discounting this time. And all we're doing is showing them screens and making them weaker and weaker daily.
I think because of the screen, one of the things that you pointed out is I think we're also taking away the fact that we know so little about our children's school lives. We know so little about what they did during the day, because during their eating time or the dinner time is the only time the child is going to open up to you about it. But instead of that human interaction, as you rightly said, the screen has taken its place.
Yeah. If you want to be a good parent, like from my own perspective of dealing with patients and parents and children in my life as a neurologist, I have always noticed one thing. If you want to do one thing for your children, just spend that half an hour, 45 minutes with them on the dining table without getting distracted by the screen. Your children will thank you when you turn old, and they will really, really cherish those moments. So don't miss out on those.
In our busy schedules, children are already using the screen to eat. So what can we do to limit that and get around it?
So there are a few steps that parents can take to limit the screen time. So first of all, limit the screen time every time you're sitting on the thing. Don't just stop everything together. It is going to be very difficult for you. So let's say limit the screen time to 10 minutes during the meal, then for the first 3 days. Then after that, for next 3 days, make it 5 minutes, and then 2 minutes, and then just stop. Now expect that the child is going to revolt. There's going to be some crying, some throwing away of the food, and that is fine. Limit the amount of time a child is spending on the dining table to no more than 20-25 minutes. If the child doesn't finish the meal, just take the plate away calmly. Do not force feed the child. Do not run after the child. Do not be threatened by the child's tantrums. That is very important for parents to realize. Children do not die of starvation. Over the next day or two, they are going to compensate with their calorie intake, and they're going to be right where you want them to. But do not fall for this. The other thing that you can do is do not watch TV or screen yourself while you're sharing the dining table. That is very important because child will look at you and will emulate exactly what you're doing. So that is another thing that you can keep in mind. So reduce the screen time, Limit the time you spend on the dining table. Interact with the child while you're doing it. If the child doesn't eat or doesn't throw tantrums, that's okay. Just let him be, let him settle down. Sooner or later, he will come back to the food and you would have trained a child who's free of screen time.
How lovely. I think what is very important is that for parents, take a deep breath when the child throws a tantrum. Strengthen your own willpower that you can do it. And just remember, you don't have to chase the child with the food because children are very good about making sure they meet their caloric intake.
Yes.
So how is the parental lifestyle affecting a child? You know, many parents say they don't yell, they don't hit the child.
To be continued, part 4 coming next, Parents' Lifestyle and Children's. Stay tuned.